And today I want to talk about what I think is a real investment opportunity, namely the Cambodian real estate market. So here are 10 reasons why I think Cambodia real estate is a great opportunity going forward. Number one, Cambodia has had no recession for 20 years. Actually, over 20 years. Now, that is quite amazing. There are very few countries in the world that have not had a recession in over 20 years. Now, one of the reasons that's because Cambodia is actually what we call a frontier market. Now, what is a frontier market? It is a market that basically is not dependent on how other countries in the world do. So, if, for example, China, US, or Europe catches a cold, Cambodia is not affected. Because what you don't have in Cambodia, as in other countries which are even emerging countries, let's say Brazil, is you don't have your Starbucks, you don't have your McDonald's. So if there's a world recession, Cambodia is not affected. It's very much localized. And this is excellent going forward. Number two, tourism. I love it when tourism is increasing in countries. It's always a sign that that country has a great potential future for the real estate market. And this is definitely the case in Cambodia, mainly, of course, in Siem Reap, where you have Angkor Wat, all the amazing temples. I only see this increasing. Number three, Cambodia is actually really pro-landlord. I love this because you can negotiate freely the rents. There are no specific tenant protections that will block you if you need to evict for non-payment. Number four, obviously the main one, prices. Prices in the capital, Phnom Penh, are actually really cheap. On average, just over $1,000 per square meter. Now compare that to Dhaka in Bangladesh and Karachi in Pakistan, where the prices are actually quite similar. But if you look at Dhaka and Karachi, they're a long way behind in development than Phnom Penh in Cambodia. So I make this as another pretty interesting reason why you should go into this market. Number five, low purchase costs. I love this. The legal fees typically are 0.5% or less. There is a registration tax fee that you have to pay, which is 4%, and that sometimes is paid by the buyer and sometimes by the seller. And normally, when you sell, the estate agent fees are paid by the seller. But if you look at your buy-sell costs together, it's pretty good because they're less than 8%. Now, number six. Good yields. The yields are pretty good in Cambodia. Typically in the capital, Phnom Penh, you're looking at 5.5% to 6%. Now, if you take into account that for non-residents, you will pay rental tax of 14%, but there's quite good deductions, so you'll normally pay less than that. So it's not too bad. Plus, property taxes are quite low, so you're looking at 0.1%, but that's over a property over $25,000. So it's actually really low. So if you're looking at a net yield, the net yields are pretty good. So I reckon in Phnom Penh you can easily get 4.5% net. And I'm sure you'll agree that's excellent when you compare it to many other capitals in the world. Number seven, the high birth rate. I like this because it shows that the population will grow. And the birth rate in Cambodia is 2.5 per couple. Pretty good. It means that the population is definitely on the rise. Compare that to Vietnam. In Vietnam, it's only 2. Although it's less than Laos, which is higher. It's not too bad. And a growing population means more demand for property and property prices going up. Number 8 is the economy. The economy has been absolutely amazing in Cambodia. It's been growing from 2010 to 2019 at an average of 7% a year. And I know in this year it will contract, but considering when with COVID-19, a lot of economies around the world are contracting by at least 6-7%, it's forecast that the Cambodian economy will only contract by 1.5%. I'm sure you'll agree that is not too bad, but 7% growth per year is absolutely tremendous, and people most experts believe that this is going to continue for a number of years ahead. That can only be good for the property market. Sticking with the economy, what I also like, and this is one of my pet loves, is when the total government debt to GDP is not too high. And it's not in Cambodia. It's around 30% as of 2019. Now, that's pretty good when you can look at Western economies, which often you'll find they're near 100, from 80 to 100%. So 30% is good. It means they don't have to raise taxation too much. And that can only be good for the property market. Number 9, what I also like is when you buy in Cambodia, the currency it's denominated in is US dollars. So that means you don't get that currency risk as in other countries. And you can buy with a little bit more tranquility. Number 10, Cambodia is actually quite a business-friendly country. Now, it is trying to encourage a lot of investment. And although it's from a low base, investment in Cambodia, believe it or not, in the last 10 years has increased by 800%. That's a phenomenal amount, agreed from a low base. But now you are starting to get the bigger companies moving in, like Samsung, Nike, and Toyota. Although, as I did say before, it's still a very, very localized market. But with these companies, multinationals, starting to move in, it's actually going to really increase the market for property. And in particular, I think at the middle to luxury end. So where to invest? Obviously, the capital Phnom Penh. There are 3 particular areas I would recommend. Obviously, the riverside, there's the financial district, and the areas of BKK1, BKK2, and BKK3. The other city I would recommend, obviously, Siem Reap. Not least because the number of tourists there are growing year by year. So if you do buy a property there, it's likely to increase. You can do Airbnb. You can even, I think, if you were to buy a hotel, you would do phenomenally well. Now, there are other cities you could invest where actually at the moment there's no foreign investment at all. But this will change because even in secondary cities, you do get foreign investment. So perhaps in Battambang and Phoi Phet, these are 2 other cities where I think you could, as a foreign investor, go in at the absolutely embryonic stages. It costs very little. And when the other foreign investment comes in, you could really make a fortune. So there I give you 10 reasons to invest in Cambodia. Now, there are obviously some disadvantages. And what's that? Well, if you flip the property, if you sell quite quickly and make a profit, you will have to pay 20% tax on that as a non-resident. Also, another thing, in Phnom Penh, there is a little bit of an oversupply of condos. So here, unfortunately, if you are a non-resident foreigner, you can actually, as an individual, only buy condominiums, which are apartments above the first floor. And those apartments tend to be a little bit overpriced and a little bit oversupplied. So those are not the best investments to make. Although I think even if you invest there, you are going to make a lot of money. But it's a little bit difficult when you want to buy land. And also, not only just land, there are other places known as shop house apartments. And these are, let's say, buildings from colonial times, which you only tend to have 1 floor, and they're predicted to be quite valuable in the future. But again, you cannot buy as an individual. You can do one of 2 things. You can set up a nominee agreement with a Cambodian citizen or form what is called a Cambodian landholding company, which is a bit more legally secure. But before doing that, I would highly recommend getting a lawyer, taking some legal advice. But if you do it that way, the rewards really are tremendous in this country. Another thing I will say, if you do buy a condo from a developer, you'll also have to pay 10% extra VAT, which again is a disadvantage. But overall, I really do think I'm very excited by the Cambodian real estate market. I genuinely think this is a market that is going to do tremendously well in the future. There are very few places in Asia where I think you can invest and in the future get such high returns. The multinationals are going to move in. very soon. I think you're going to get more and more expats moving into this area. Phnom Penh is developing at an amazing rate, but still from a low base. And I think what you might get in 20, 30 years will be the new Singapore. It's more than possible. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Are you considering investing in Cambodia? Have you already invested in Cambodia? Where have you invested in Cambodia? Let me know your thoughts. Put a few comments. Put a few likes if you think this video has been helpful or you've enjoyed it. And I hope you can subscribe to my channel so you can watch other videos on real estate abroad and other videos concerning investment in general. It's been a pleasure having you again. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.